romances, right? You walk through hanging garden in the late evening and you will find couples enjoying themselves. Now, throughout the session, I'm going to compare human romance as well as with this floristic topic, right? The romance in the with the plants. So gardens basically are funs. They're fun for human beings, fun for animals, fun for insects. They also have other importances, like they connect you with the nature, they connect you to the Almighty, pleasant, the soothing environment, etc. Right? But if you look at the plants, what is the purpose of their life? I'm talking about the plants, right? The purpose of the plant, the life for plants is survival. Survival in the nature, survival in the atmosphere, in given conditions. And which is achieved, the survival is achieved only when they reproduce. They need to create their offsprings, their progeny, their seeds, and make sure their species survive. Correct? In fact, this applies the survival, the purpose for the life is reproduction is applies to even animals, insects, and human beings. Though we as human, we also look at it very philosophically, the purpose of the life. But if you remove that philosophical part, it is basically the reproduction. Now, if you talk about plants, flowers are, what are the reproductive parts of the plants? Flowers. Flowers are the reproductive organs. In flowers, within a flower, you have sepals, petals, androecium, male reproductive structure, and gynoecium, female reproductive structure. But we know the plants are fixed. They cannot move. They are rooted. And therefore, they need partner in their sexual life, their sexual, you can say, partners in crime, because in certain cases it is criminal. I'll talk about it later. Right? They strive to attract their partners by various ways, just like our human beings, right? We try and attract. If you like someone, you try and attract that person's attention by doing various things. We need not go into those details. But plants also do the same kinds of things. And if you look at this, plants have, can you see the entire slide? Or plants have just one goal in their life, to produce seeds ultimately that will grow into the next generation. Correct? And while doing this, or for doing this, they don't have any ethics. They, unlike humans, we do follow some ethics. Humans, some ethics. Some people follow ethics. Some people don't follow ethics. Again, we don't go into that. But unlike humans, plants have no ethics, may use bribery, treachery, cheating, traps, killing, various tricks up in their sleeves to help them succeed in their goal, and that is reproduction. Now, as I said, unlike humans or animals or mammals, plants are rooted. So they have to get help from third-party help in achieving their goal of reproduction, in accomplish a partner who will carry the male gametes fast and accurately from one plant to another. Right? This is a basic idea, the pollinators, the pollination. So if you think those insects, butterflies, they play the role of Cupid. In real life, you have Cupid. I'm sure we have a Valentine's Day and you are familiar with Cupid. So here the insects and butterflies and bats and other things play that important role of Cupid, and you can see here some moth actually trying to suck the honey. Now, why would they do this? These pollinators or these agents, these third-party agents, why would they do this favor of pollinating the plants or helping to achieve their sexual desire, the plant's sexual desire? So to answer this, we know that they actually visit not just for uh, pollination, but they visit the flowers for nectar, the food, which is a sugary nectar substance, maybe at different locations, generally in the floral parts at the base of the flower, or various glands around the flowers. Or the other alternative is the uh, pollen grain itself. The pollen are proteinaceous products and they are eaten as food. So these pollinators are visiting the flowers not for helping the plants to fulfill their goal, but their own interest. And the interest is food, basically the nectar and the pollen grain, right? So bees, butterflies, they are bribed. These nectar and pollen grains are used as bait or a bribe, uh, or sometimes even shelter. The shelter is provided to these pollinators take shelter in flowers to prevent themselves from harsh conditions, environmental conditions, extreme cold, extreme heat, or rain, right? So shelter is also one bait to these pollinators. And for these purposes, these pollinators visit the flowers. Now there are various. So what I'm going to do is now, there are many. It is not easy and not possible to finish talk about each and everything, but few categories which have come to my mind. There might be many more. I have listed it here. Some plants do not advertise. There are plants which advertise. I will come to that. But these plants, for example, here this is a grass, expose their sex organs to wind and take a chance. If possible, by chance, the wind carries the pollen grains. So here is the inflorescence of a grass, which is seen, and you can see they're exposing their sexual reproductive organs. On the top, you have stigmas, the hairy stigmas of the flowers, and down you can see the stamens. Right now, stigmas, when they are matured, we'll come to that again later on, but receive the pollens from other flowers, and the stamens which are down, when they are matured, they produce the large number of pollens which then gets carried away by winds. So here is one method of the plant which is not advertising but exposing their sexual reproductive structure to the wind. Let's look at this. This is clear way of advertising the parts of the floral parts to the world, to the environment. You can see a very bright color hibiscus flower, and this is a staminal column on which the yellow anthers, and protruding from that above the anthers, we have stigmas, 5 stigmas. So this is a style coming in between and the stigmas at the top. This is a kind of a very obvious exposure, advertising exposure, that look, hey, I'm available for reproduction. It is inviting the pollinators, inviting their partners to visit them. Now, they're of course not saying that, look, I would like to reproduce. They are inviting them by showing them the bright colors, and as well as the stamens and the pollen grains on it. So pollen acts as a proteinaceous bed, or there is a nectar available at the in the center at the bottom of this the tubular cup of the petals, right? This is a hibiscus flower. So this is one trick, and many flowers have this kind of a mechanism where they expose the sexual organs. Now here is a butylon species, the yellow color flowers, and you can see, you cannot see here in this scenario stigmas very clearly. These are the stigmas, but very prominent anthers or stamens are visible. Again, the bright colors help to attract the insect. In this top left side flower, this is a cleome flower, and here this is Sterculia or Firmiana colorata. Again, see, it's a female reproductive structure protruding long out of the flower, making it very obvious, advertising itself. Okay, look, here is a structure and here is a nectar. Normally the stigma produces nectary liquid viscous substance which attracts a number of pollinators, right? Similarly, here many composite flowers have these kinds of number of flowers. We know the structure of composite or asteraceae, ray florets, disc florets, etc., and large number of flowers, very tiny flowers. But if you look at their structure, the petals have gone down a little bit and exposing those ray florets and disc florets very clearly. So this is a kind of advertising their reproductive structure, right? Attracting plants, insects, butterflies, various kinds of insects, wasps, for reproduction. So this is one. The next one is attract attention in a very competitive world. So animals, humans have a various tricks to attract attention. This is a spelling mistake, attract attention. So the plants also have, and they attract by using very bright, vibrant colors, various designs and patterns, right? And we'll see those kinds of flowers and how they attract or help inviting various kinds of insects. This is a Smithia hirsuta. I'm sure those who have visited Tass Plateau have seen them in numbers, right? Mickey Mouse, what is popularly known as. Now, why do you think these two red dots are produced here? What is the purpose of these red dots? Basically, any additional structure if plant needs to produce on its own, on the structure there, it utilizes good amount of energy. So why would plant spend that energy to create these kinds of two spots? This is very clear examples that it is advertising with colors. So pattern is designed, pattern is developed, and it is inviting bees, various kinds of bees, butterflies, right, hummingbirds to visit this particular flower. There are several such examples where you have the advertising pattern with different colors. So if you look at this, this is again a picture from Cas, Utricularia with the purple color flower and the white dot on it. This is a pattern there. Periwinkle, number of varieties in periwinkle, and each one has pattern there. In the center, there is a dot which is of different color, right? This is fuchsia. Look at the way it is advertising itself. Stigma protruding out of the flower completely, followed by stamens. Very colorful plant. Fuchsia. This periwinkle, that particular spot right in the center with the hole there, is actually kind of a guiding area. It guides the insects, not just attract, but guides the insect that that's the center where you are supposed to visit, right? So these are the kind of tricks many such plants utilize, right? In many plants, we know the plants, if you are a botany student or otherwise also, in school we have learned this. There are different flowers. There are bisexual flowers and there are unisexual flowers. In a bisexual flowers, you have a self-pollination. There is a possibility of self-pollination where stamens as well as carpels both present. But self-pollination is avoided by giving opportunity to male, or here I'm just saying using the human words, male and boys stamens first, by maturing them before the ovary. Ovary matures a little later, right? And the ovary matures after the pollen grains of one particular flowers the stamens are matured, pollens are dispersed with the help of all kinds of insects, and after a particular period, when the stamens are completely dried up or wilted, the female part or ovary then matures. The stigma becomes receptive, it becomes sticky, and then accepts the stamens from the other flower coming in. So sexual orientation, bisexual flowers avoid cross-pollination. In unisexual flowers, male and female plants, there are two kinds, one is separate plants altogether. Male plant is separate, female plant is separate, or on the same plant, but you have a male particular structure growing in a different branch and the female reproductive structure going in it, or their positioning, male flowers at the right at the top, female flowers at the bottom. So that kind of structure. And this is again avoiding nature prefers the cross-pollination as far as possible. It knows the danger of self-pollination, because self-pollination you tend to lose the genetic material over the period of time. Whereas in the cross-pollination, there is a chance of creating new kinds of varieties, new kind of progenies, right? And here you see lots of different colors here attracting the bisexual flowers, attracting various kinds of insects. This is a Asclepiadaceae plant, I forgot the name, and there's a Orchidaceae plant. Orchids are the most beautiful flowers with lots of variations and tricks up their sleeves for reproduction. Again, look at this colorful flowers of Asclepias curasavica, with what is popularly called as haldi kumkum. And again, see this red, yellow staminal column. These are very, very peculiar reproductive structures. What you see here, black spots, are the pollen grains. And to get those pollen grains, there's a separate mechanism where the insects or the butterfly, the bees, beetles, sits on these with their weights, and they pick up the pollen, pollinia, what is it called from in the botanical terms. So different colors, attraction of different colors, using different kinds of colors and patterns. So here also, these various bright colors are used for attracting insects, right? In some cases, as I said, the bisexual flowers matures first, followed by ovary. So this is kind of a time management. How do they know exactly when to mature? When the stamen should mature, when the ovary should mature, and that falls under the time management. And these flowers are very uh, good at managing time because of the sunlight, because of the kind of temperature, atmospheric conditions. They recognize the time of the day. We know Mirabilis jalapa, 4 o'clock plant. They open at 4 o'clock. So how do they find that timings? So time management, attracting insects at particular time. Okay. Here is the picture of the same this geranium flower, but very clearly shows you that at one given time, first picture is the stigma which is matured, right? And it has probably accepted pollen grains from the nearby flower. And you can look at the stamens which are not showing any kind of pollens on it. They are immature. They are not opened it yet, right? Now, once that is over, you can see the stigma slowly opens up here. The pollen grains from the other plant are stuck here because of the sticky substance or a nectary substance on it, which gets then sucked in to the through the style right up to the ovary and do the fertilization. So you can see the different parts of the plant germinating at different time, or the maturing at different time, right? These are the peonias. Again, the similar pattern here. Number of if you look at the structure, number of ovaries are peonias are known for multiple ovaries, polycarpillary structure. And if you look at the next slide, you will see the pollen grains are completely dried, the anthers are dried, and the ovaries are then exposed with maturity, matured kind of thing. The stigmas ready to accept the kind of the pollens from the neighboring flowers, right? In some flowers, how do they avoid self-pollination? For example, this anemones cannot self-pollinate because the female pistils chemically recognize their own pollen. So even if the own pollen falls on the same flower stigma, it will not allow that pollen to produce germ tube, or won't allow that germ tube to reach the ovary and transfer the gamete because of chemical signals. So they recognize their own chemicals and do not allow to penetrate as far as the ovaries. Aren't they smart? Right? Because we think they don't understand, but many things they understand. Here you can see the segregated sexes, unisexual flowers. This is thrum-eyed male flowers of primrose and pin-eyed female flowers of primrose. Right? And again, you can see the pattern here. If you look at the male flowers, these are the stamens, will mature here. Different timings, segregated. These are dioecious flowers, separate flowers, separate male and separate females. And you can see that different patterns are evolved from this. Similar way, I'm sure we all have seen these cucurbits. They have a male flower separate and female flower separate plants even. So dioecious plants are seen in this, right? This is a female flower here on the bottom too, and the male flowers at the top. So they prevent self-pollination. They attract the other insects by using various kinds of tricks. Here is another type of plant which we all know, the castor plant. And on this you can see now the male flowers at the bottom and the female flowers at the top. But in same way, they avoid self-pollination by recognizing their own chemicals or delaying the timings of their maturity of pollen and the stigma, right? Selecting one's own sex. Sometimes the environment determines the sex of the plant, meaning the seedlings are stressed in harsh conditions, environmental conditions. When the environmental conditions are dry or very harsh, the plant tend to become male because while those receiving more favorable conditions, when there is a good environmental conditions, the plant becomes female. Now, why is it so? Because the female requires to produce eggs, which will fertilize and then bear seeds, etc. So it requires more and more energy for that. So in a conditions only the plant transfers itself into a female plant. If the conditions are not favorable, the environmental condition is not favorable, then the plant becomes a male plant. This is called environmental sex determination or ESD, and there are several such examples in the nature. Right? Here is a example. Now this, as I said, the unfavorable condition, it creates male flower, but there are some plants in a reverse way. They do they generate into, they create the male flowers under the favorable conditions. So nature has various, it's a huge nature, large number of plants, some varieties, and they have different tricks up in their sleeves for reproduction. So why this happens, as I said, this is a strategy for the resource allocation. Being a female is an expensive, because producing seeds and fruits requires massive amount of energy and nutrients. And being male is cheaper because producing pollen is far less costly. It's cheaper, right? So that's the purpose behind this selection, depending on the environmental conditions. Arizima triphyllum is a known as blackjack. Male in, this is, as I said, some plants reverse this particular plant produces pollen grains in a favorable conditions and female in unfavorable conditions. It also has a very typical reproduction structure, the strategy, which we will talk at the end of this. I have another slide for this particular things, right? In some plants, there are devoted structures. They evolve through millions of years and adapt to just one flower, one species. So species-specific pollinators. Very, very specific. There's a very good example of Darwin's orchid and a moth, which pollinates the same orchid. When during the Darwin's era, Darwin had predicted, he came across in a herbarium, came across a orchid with a long spur. That spur was almost 12 inches. I have a picture here. You can see this the spur. This is a spur, which end of the spur is not seen. It is out of the frame, right? It's a long green spur here, and at the bottom of that spur there is a nectary. So the Darwin predicted at that time, he didn't know how it gets pollinated, but he predicted that there has to be a moth with equally long proboscis. And after quite a long period, they found it in Madagascar island, this particular orchid, and they came across, after, of course, very lengthy experiments and devotion, they sat through there in nights. There are a number of videos, in fact, available on YouTube. You can see this Darwin's orchid and moth pollination, and whole experiment they show there. They set up the camera and they waited 3-4 days to trace this, and one day they succeeded. The moth actually visited the flower and you can see the proboscis of this particular moth, how big it is. This is a proboscis. Now, how does the proboscis is carried on the body of the moth? Such a long proboscis, it gets coiled when it is not in use, and when requires the coil, it gets uncoiled. So this is an uncoiled proboscis entering through the corolline or petaloid tube here. This is a spur, and right at the bottom of the spur there is a nectary. The spur is as big as the proboscis. So the moth, actually the head of the moth, when it pushes the proboscis right inside, the head of the moth touches the mouth of the flower where the pollinia of the orchids are situated. Now when she finishes sucking the nectar, she will fly away from that particular flower and look for some other similar species flower. But unknowingly, she has already picked up the pollinia on her head at that particular time there. So the pollinia get then transferred to another flower, right? Very beautiful example and beautiful video. This is another very species specific. This is a traveler's palm. We know all of this. All of us know this. Ravenella madagascarensis, and it is pollinated by a black lima. You can see this black lima, and its nose. The nose is full of pollen grains, and they travel. They smell this. There is a chemical pheromones which is, through the air they sense this, and they travel miles and miles to reach to this flowering Ravenella in Madagascar. And this lima then, in search of nectar, when they approach the flowers, they pick up the pollen grains like this from one flower to the other flower, or one tree to the other tree. When they visit, they transfer the pollens to the other plant of the same species, same flowers, right? So species-specific pollinators. Orchids are the best examples for this particular things, right? Then I mentioned about this design and patterns, and when we were talking about designs and pattern, I told you about periwinkle, and that the periwinkle had a very tiny, different color central dot. So it is kind of assisting the visitor to, it's kind of a guided target assistance provided to the visitor, saying that please don't waste your time. Here is a area where you should put your proboscis or penetrate through this area to reach the nectary. So nectary is generally located at the bottom of the corolla tube, right? Here also in these flowers, very colorful flowers, and you can see the outer color ring is lighter, the inner one is darker, and the insects gets attracted to this. Now insects don't see the same color, they see under UV light, so the different colors are seen, but again there are different patterns under UV light also. In this also, this is euphorbia, right? Euphorbia flower, and you can see not euphorbia, rubiaceae plant, I forgot the name. And you can see how the central portion is attractive, very colorful, assisting the visitor. Musanda, the plant is Musanda, assisting the visitor to reach to its destination, thereby fulfilling the selfish motive of pollination, right? Look at this. This is a iris flower, and those who have seen the iris flower must have seen these patterns evolved on this particular flower, right? Different flowers, different iris flowers, or different, even in this category, we have seen other flowers also. Those who have seen teal, the sesamum flowers, the Pedaliaceae sesamum flowers, they have a very beautiful pattern, and the linings in the center. Now, one might see why these markings are there. So these markings directs the insects. They act as a runway light. You can imagine a plane. So this is a larger petal which has these markings, and the insect lands on the petal, and these marking in those UV lights guide them towards the bottom of the flower where the nectaries are. So these linings act as runway light for these insects. Same way here, this iris flower, it's a kind of a runway light, right? Also, in some cases, see this particular species, this is a very, someone has gone and done a wonderful photography. The name is here, Abhijit Jwekar. And this is on the left side, left top corner is actual flower. And he has managed to get the photography done inside. And you can see the number of hairs on the lower lip of the petal, right? And these hairs are glandular hairs. And you can see at the top, there is a sticky stigma, okay? As the insect sits on this petal here, we can call it as a landing platform, and walks through these hairs. When it touches a particular hair out of these many hairs here, now one might wonder why are there, those hairs are eaten as a food material. So the insect is trying to eat them. And why it does that, it actually touches that trigger. One of the hair is a trigger which will allow the stamens are also at the top. The stigma is also at the top. The stamens will burst, anthers will burst, and there will be a sprinkling of pollen grains on at the back or the back side of the insect. So this kind of mechanisms also are developed by plants. We have also seen, there's a slide. Okay, we'll go through this slide first. Right? Some flowers, as we know, the rose have a scent. So many flowers have scent. If you currently everywhere, Alstonia scolaris or Saptaparni is in flower, and around the flowers in the evening, late evening, if you are passing nearby, you have that tree, you will get that very sweet scented flower, the sweet scent, the fragrance from the particular flower. So they advertise themselves. Now, if you look at the flower, this doesn't have much besides the color. The scent act as an attractive material, attraction. Alstonia also the similar story. Alstonia has a little different angle because Alstonia flowers are very small, inconspicuous, not very attractive, but they got a very strong fragrance. And then the insect gets attracted to them, right? Food nectar. So if you look at, this is balsam flower, common balsam flower. And balsam flower is known for spur, just like we saw that extra spur in Darwin's orchid. The balsam also have a spur. If you can see my pointer moving on the slide, I'm not sure, but this portion, the long tail-like structure, which is whitish at the tip, is called spur. And that whitish tip is actually the nectary. It's hollow inside, and the nectary is at the bottom of the end of the spur, right? And it provides that nectar as a food to the butterfly or the insect which is visiting this particular. Now what happens here is, again, see this, the reproductive part of the flower are at the upper region of the petal at the top, whereas the lower petals are broader in area, and they don't have anything attached there, but they have a markings, white and spots there. So they kind of lights attracting or guiding insects. The insect lands on these larger petal like a platform, landing platform, and then tries to suck the uh, honey or nectar through this spur by using its proboscis. And then in that struggle of sucking the nectar, it touches the top of the stigma, or if the anthers are matured at that particular time, then it will pick up the anthers from there, right? uh, some are very selective entrance. They create, some flowers create the passage, like this particular, the balsam creates the entrance with the larger landing platform. Here these particular flower, these type of flowers have a very specific the visitor. The visitor has a long beak, and if you look at this, the shape of the flower, which is opening from the bottom, and you can imagine the curved beak, and this sunflower sunbird is sucking the nectar from the bottom of the flower here, and it will invariably unknowingly carry those pollen grains on his beak while visiting in some other flowers, right? The flower is Leonotis nepetifolia, or commonly known as deep mouth, right? Some plants advertise by shapes, right? Their shape, their size, uh, offering them the shelter. So open flowers, bowl-shaped flowers, uh, give them shelter from rain or predators. For example, I'll show you this. Look at this. This is a magnolia flower, Magnolia grandiflora flower, a very huge flower, as big as you can keep your ball pen in the open flower, and it will stay there without falling down. That big flower. Now again, if you look at those insects there inside, the top portion, the conical top portion with the tips coming out, those are the stigmas, the ovary style and stigmas, right? And the anthers are actually below. So it's a polycarpillary structure, and anthers are below. So here they're trying to eat those anthers there available, right? Nectar, you can see those anthers, stamens are fallen side by. They have removed them actually. Now the size of the flower provides them the shelter. The many times some species have a higher temperature than the adjacent atmosphere around them, warmed temperature, and the insects which like that warmth come and visit that particular flower for that kind of warmth. They hang on there in that cup shape or a bowl shaped flower. Look at this, the other one also, the next one, it is Louisia flower, and similar kind of structure, bowl shaped structure. As a This has been experimentally proved that the temperature near the ovary style stigma or inside that center is higher, slightly 1 or 2 degrees higher than the outside atmospheric conditions. So different shapes. We've also seen the shapes like landing platforms for bees and beetles and kinds of things in earlier pictures there, right? Here again, very similar landing platforms, but look at their patterns. The one is Acanthus ilicifolius, one is Astracantha longifolia, and this one is Bignoniaceae plant. I forgot the name, and I'll tell you in a minute. So look at the lower petal with the thick. This portion is slightly thicker than the remaining part of the petal. Why? Because it has to bear the weight of the insect. The beetle which sits there, which is slightly heavier than petal, if the petal is not thick, it will probably damage that. So plant has evolved the mechanism where the center of the petal is thicker than any other part. And if you look very carefully, you can see the stigma coming, protruding right out just above the thick portion. So when the insect lands on this platform, sits on this dark yellow, thicker portion of the petal, the stigma touches the back of the insect, which probably has brought. This is a matter of chance. It is not necessarily that every time it will have the required pollen grains. But if it has the pollen grain, and if it is of the same species, the stigma recognizes its own. I told you there's a chemical signaling, and it absorbs those pollens. At the same time, with the suppose the anther, the stigma has already picked up the pollen and the fertilization is carried, or the work is done. The next mature, the anthers become mature, and with the shock of landing, when insect lands on that, it is not a simple thing for that. It is a shock. With that shock, it's a kind of a spring action, and you have the anthers which are right at the top sprinkling the pollen grains on that. Same mechanism is applicable here in Acanthus ilicifolia. Only thing, the central portion is in a different color. It's a dark purple color, and similar mechanism of landing, etc. Right? This is a sausage tree. I'm sure you've seen this planted in Navi Mumbai on the roadside. I'm not Kigelia africana, or sausage tree. Yeah, Kigelia africana. Thank you, Rahul. In Navi Mumbai, number of avenue trees are planted, and they are normally visited by. If you notice, when do they flower? If you go early morning for a walk, you will normally see these flowers fallen down. How do they fall down? Because they are visited by bats in the early morning, or they probably flower early morning and get visited by bats. And with the weight of the bat, after of course sucking the nectar, etc., these flowers fall down. But by then the pollination has already happened. The pollens are gone with the bat or something like this. Right? Similar structure is seen in the forested plant Clerodendrum serratum. Again, you can see the similar. Look at those anthers which are coming out of the flower and arcing over the lower petal, bending down, arcing over the lower petal. So when the insect sits on that lower petal, the pollen grains are sprinkled, or the stigma will pick up the pollen from other particular flowers. I was talking about Sesamum pedaliaceae plant, and here you can see, look at the very dark lower, the other petals are not that dark, different colors. But this central inside one, and it has got spots on that guiding the insect right up to the ovary. The ovary which is at the bottom, and then there would be a nectaries around the ovary which would attract the insect. Same way, this particular, this is coleus or ocimum flower, or coleus, I think probably coleus flower. And you can see the similar structure. The lower lip is very long as compared to the others, has particular marking signals on that, kind of a runway light. And you can see the stigma protruding, arching over that lower petal, helping the pollination purpose, right? Impatiens and ginger. Look at this. This shows very clear. Now here the bee is she's trying to go inside, and you can see she's loaded heavily with a white pollen mass. Right? The stigma is slightly away from it has tilted upward so that it doesn't touch. correct? Because probably she has picked up the pollens from the same flower. She'll visit the other flower and transfer those pollens here. Here also the impatiens, you can see how that fly is loaded with number of pollen grains or pollen masses, right? Some plants, now we've seen scent, we've seen shapes, we've seen colors, so attracting them using different methods, guiding them by providing them signals, chemical signals or UV light signals by with the different kinds of. There's some plants trap the insect for a temporary period. So ceropegias, if you know, or arum, a suran flower, or that particular group, it traps the flies. It has got a very long inflorescence, especially the arum. If you look at the arum inflorescence, I'll show it to you here. Where did it go? Here, right? This is a arum inflorescence, picture of the arum, and you can see it is the conical inflorescence inside. Some people call it as a spider arum, there spider lily or something like this, and it traps the insect. You can see the direction of insect going in, down. This is a very particular, the female flowers at the bottom, male flowers at the top, right? And it traps. Another example of trapping insects is here. Look at this. This is a nymphia plant, and you can see the insect is trapped inside. I'm sure you have seen this entrapment in those who have seen Victoria lily, big white flower with a large leaf. Victoria lily is normally seen the picture of a child sitting on the leaf, and it leaf can take the weight of. I'm talking about those. I don't have a picture here, but Victoria lily has a white color flowers which opens up somewhere in the evening. The beetle visits the flower and in search of nectar, it spends time there and gets trapped inside because the flower closes in the evening, late evening. Throughout the night, the insect is trapped inside the flower, struggling to get out. In that bargain, in that effort of struggle, all pollens are stuck. Next day morning, evening, when it opens up again, the insect is allowed to fly out. So temporary entrapment. Same in ceropegia. Ceropegia has a very unique structure. It has got bands, dark bands and the light bands, or they are also called as light windows and dark windows, guiding the fly towards the base of the flower. There is a nectary of the flower. You can see these ceropegias here, right? And you can see this one particular flower is cut open to show you the reproductive part is right at the bottom here. This is upside down flower hanging down, and then you can see inside these green and white lines, those are the bands, or they call light window and dark window. The light window acts in a way that light falls on the bottom of that, near the ovary where the nectar is there, right? The insect, you can see the windows here, these openings, the insect enters through these openings. These are different ceropegias: Ceropegia media, Ceropegia jani, Ceropegia aculeata, and all of them, if you look at it, they are bulgy at the bottom. There's a bulge there. There's swollen there, and that's because the ovary or their stigma style, everything is in that region. Through these open windows. These are, see, you can see here also, these open windows, the insect goes in and gets trapped inside. Why it gets trapped? Because see, you see these uh, hairs which are downwardly pointing hairs, right? These downwardly pointing hairs do not allow that insect which has reached at the bottom. So if he has to escape, he has to come upward towards the open window and then come out. But these downwardly pointed hairs do not allow that insect to come out. Why? Because the flowers want that insect to spend some time in that area, so that in that struggle of coming out, he picks up the pollinia. These plants have pollinia, right? Pollinia are very specific structures, and they pick up that pollinia. Now, again, you will find very unique characteristics. Once the pollinia are picked up or the pollination is done, plant withers away. The rigidity of the entire flower is lost. Those trees, those hairs which were downwardly pointing and not allowing insects, they also lose their rigidity, and then the insects can fly out very easily, visiting next flower on the next day or sometime in the same day. Right? So this is kind of entrapping, temporary entrapping of the insects. Correct? Actually, the slides have got misplaced. This could have come little earlier. When you can see how this uh, bee is totally flooded with the pollen mass, right? Again, here, this is passion flower, and you can see there is a probably hummingbird or a sunbird trying to reach to the nectary. Nectaries are at the bottom here. Now, these black ones are the stigmas, and these are the stamens, right? Yeah, can we have question answers at the end, Mr. Gambire? I will answer your question at the end, right? And these are called staminal corona, or these are food. These are actually the bait, false kind of. So think that these are the answers, false answers. The staminal, I forgot the terminology, but these can be eaten by the insects or the birds very easily. And while they do that, the stamens which are at the top, I mean, you can see this upward, upside down, they can brush on the head of the bird, and the bird can then carry the pollen grains, right? Here, this is pogostemon. I'm sure at CAS you must have seen. It's a column. If you look at the structure of the inflorescence, it's a columnar inflorescence. And the entire column does not mature at the same time. So the lowest flower will mature first. So the insects will sit on those flowers, visit the particular inflorescence. And it takes a couple of days for the entire flowering to complete. So it invites the insects again and again and again, making them addictive, that come again and visit me again, and you have the food material available here. By doing this, it is enhancing its own chances of reproduction, correct? So it's a columnar sex in column. Same way, these are similar kind of practices the plants use, right? Here, this is Aginacea, and it gives the shelter, as I said, misplacement of the slide, but it gives the shelter during rains, and the insects are given shelter during rains. This grows during the rainy season, and when it comes out, it carries pollen grains. This is, I'm sure you've seen this particular flower, and very smart bird here. The flowers are equally smart. Now you see the bulge of the at the bottom of the flower there is a bulge, so the ovaries is style and stamens, everything is at that bottom portion. Now this flower, this particular sunbird is doing a cheating. He normally could have put his beak from the mouth of the flower, but what is he doing is he knows there is a, why waste time? He knows there is a stamen is at that particular level, and he's trying to break open at that level and directly touching those stamens at that position. So thereby picking up the pollen grains immediately from it. This is a Besharam plant which is seen everywhere in many places, right? Same way, you can see these flowers are very species specific. Their floral parts, floral tubular structure is modified specially for sunbirds. So these flowers are specially for sunbird purpose only. In some cases, there are false pollen grains. This is one of those Moldania flowers, and you can see two different types of stamen. One is a purple stamen and one is a white color, that is also stamen. The ovary style stigma, ovary is greenish and the style stigma is purple here. So then what are these three stamens doing here? These are sterile stamens. Why do they have sterile stamens? Because as I told you, mentioned you in the beginning, any additional or any structure to be manufactured on the plant requires huge amount of energy to make that structure. So why would then it produces sterile stamens? Three sterile stamens, it's a huge amount of energy being consumed for producing those stamens. But these stamens are now these flowers don't have a scent, right? These flowers don't have even the nectar, but these flowers use these sterile stamens as a food. The bait is given to them. They are very proteinaceous, and the insects sit there and eat those stamens. So this is a pollen, false pollen as a bait. Same way, I'm sure you've seen, everyone has seen this cannonball flower. Very typical structure. Have you ever think why this, the hood-like structure is so many stamens are there, so many. Actually, the ovary style stigma is on this side at the bottom here in the center, right? And here are these fertile stamens. These are all sterile stamens. So, oh sorry, it's the other way around. These are all fertile stamens and these are all sterile, wrongly labeled. So when a bigger insect, or a bird tries to come in or something, it pushes this upper flap on the top, right? It has to insert, it has to make effort to go in, and when it goes in, to suck the nectar here below, these pollens, the sterile pollen, the fertile pollens, sprinkle the pollen grains. But at the same time, these sterile ones are eaten. Right? The cannonball has large number of sterile stamens, which are then eaten by bats. This gets pollinated by bat, right? You can see another bait here. These yellow structure, this is Euphorbia poinsettia plant, very beautiful garden plant, and you can see the nectary. The flower is in the center. The stamens are, you can see here. This yellow structure has you can see even the nectar inside there. These are the nectaries. They produce nectar, and in the struggle of collecting nectar, the insect collects the stamens or brings the stamens and put it back on the stigmas of the fertile, the matured stigmas of the flower. Now here, another additional structure they have generated, that is the very colorful bracts, petaloid bract, right? Very colorful, that attracts those insects here. We spoke about nymphia, entrapping. Now this entrapping in many species, they get even killed. So, or they get eaten. We have seen the pitcher plant eats the insect, but if the insect manages to escape, probably it will carry those pollen grains, right? In nymphia, often the insects are trapped inside. If they do not manage, there is a sticky substance. They struggle to come out, but they die in that struggle. So this is a category which is like eating the victims, murder of the visitors for the sexual purpose, right? You can see the picture of Pollinia, some of those Ceropegias or orchids, different types of Pollinia. These are some orchid Pollinias are here. You can see it's not a common powdery pollen grain, but this is a semi-solid, semi-liquid pollen mass, and they get very easily stuck on the head of the bee. I have a similar one here. This is like what they call it is a mimicry or deceptive, deceiving another species. You can see this one is a flower, and it has got one petal which looks like actually the male bee, right? This looks like a female bee. One of the petal of the orchid here looks like a female bee, which cheats the actual male of the bee, thinks that there is a female bee sitting here and he comes for copulation. So this is a pseudo copulation process in Cotonia. The real male bee comes and sits on the back of this female here. It's not a female, it's a petal, right? One of those petals, and try to copulate with that. Now in that copulation movement, it hits the, you can see the pollinia here. These two are the pollinia. It hits the head. Even this side, these are the pollinias, and in that effort of copulation, those sticky pollinias get stuck on the head of that bee. There are very beautiful videos available of this Cotonia orchid, or if you put word there, search hammer orchid. The hammer orchid has another very typical mechanism. It has got a long stalk and a notch, and one end of that notch has this deceptive female petal like structure, where the male bee sits on that, and with the weight of that notch or a spring like structure start shaking, and that vigorous shaking, it hits the actual opening of the flower where the pollinia are situated, right? You can search for hammer orchid on the YouTube and you will see this. You can see this here in this picture. You can see this actual, the bee or a wasp, I think it's a wasp, sitting on that petal, and you can see at the back, the end of the whole body of the wasp, the two pollinias are stuck. Now when this wasp flies from here to the other flower, it will carry those pollinia and put it by, again accidentally put it on this. This is I have a hammer orchid picture here, and you can see this is the portion here. This is a notch, and the wasp sits on this uh, deceptive female organ, the female petal. With that, this hinge, actually it's a hinge like structure, starts shaking, and you can see it is, this video is available, very beautifully portrayed in that video, a whole the cheating mechanism. It's a mimicry. The flower is cheating the insect by inviting him to do the pseudo copulation, right? The insect is stupid, not understanding that it is not a real female but false female, and it tries to copulate with that, right? You can see the another, this is a fly carrying these yellow things, are not the part of the fly structure as well, but it is just the pollen masses collected from the one particular plant to the other plant here. You can see here again at the tip of its head, this wasp or fly, I'm not sure what it is. It is carrying the pollinia there, right? We've already seen this Arizima, uh, also known as black jack, or uh, something. Well, I don't remember where is the name written there. Now here in this, it is very peculiar structure. These are female flowers here. This Arizima produce a very bad smell, stinking smell, which actually attracts the flies. I'm sure you've seen cow dung, and in that cow on the cow dung, lots of flies sits on the cow dung because of that smell. They like it. So this flower produces that cow dung smell, and that cow dung smell attracts these flies, which goes right in. And inside, these are the female flowers, and nectar is here, and then try and eat them, suck the nectar. And there is an opening at the bottom here which allows, because it doesn't want that fly to go back in the same route, because if it goes by same route, the top portion are the male flowers. To avoid those male flowers, it is allowing that those insects to get escape from the bottom here. There is a small opening from where they escape, right? Once that is done, then the column, the male flowers which are on the top, this whole inflorescence is called spadix inflorescence, and they are covered by the one of those greeny spadix leaf-like structure, and then the other insects will enter there. Now, many times these insects get trapped inside. If they don't find that opening at the right time, they will also get killed inside. Okay? Yeah, it's called jack in the pulpit, the Arizima trifilium. We have already seen this for a different reason, and it also sometimes kills the visitor. I'm sure you've seen this giant titanic arum, huge arum species, and they have a similar kind of inflorescences and the pollination mechanism. This one is obviously the Asclepiadaceae, the largest flower, and again produces a very bad smell to attract insects, and those insects are then enter inside to look for the nectaries and eat those kinds of things. Here you can see this is a suran flower. The lower portion has the anthers here, the stem, the stigmas coming out from here, and these are the anthers on this side, right? Uh, this is a historical co-evaluation evolution in yucca flower, and particularly pollinated by yucca moth. Okay, these are yucca flowers, yucca moths, and if you read this, 40 million years there has been a relationship between yucca plants and yucca moths. Yeah. Sorry. Right, and what this does is this moth actually, this yucca, this yucca moth has two antennas at the near the head. With that antenna, it visits the yucca flowers when it wants to lay the eggs. This moth is known for laying its egg in the flower of the yucca. Okay, so when it is ready to lay the eggs, it first visits the flower and visits the stamens of the flower, collect the pollen grains, makes the ball of the pollen, then goes down, penetrates the ovary, lays her eggs in the ovary, pushes some of the pollen grains to close that, and then again visits another flower. It carries the pollen, that ball which she has made. She visits again another stigma at the top now. She has already visited ovary, pushed some of the pollens, right? The remaining pollen ball is pushed through the style stigma so that it gets pollinated. Now it also leaves some pheromones there. because she doesn't want other yucca moths to waste their time and visit that, because she has already laid the eggs. So she wants to protect her eggs from the other moths. So she leaves the pheromones, that those pheromones tells the other moths, yucca moths, not to enter because someone else has already occupied this space. So look at the nature's mechanism of telling each other, communicating with each other in a way which we don't even realize that they do this. So very wonderful mechanism of yucca moth here. And you can see this yucca flower and the moth right at the top. The stigma has slight opening here where to which she pushes the anthers, the pollen mass. You can see this, right? Here is a pictorial things. It shows the larvae. Then once the eggs matured, the larvae are born. They eat that ovary portion and come out of that flower. These flowers are eaten by these are visited by bats. Right now, it doesn't matter whether it is darkness, no problem. Bats can travel in the darkness. They use that the frequency. They visit the flowers. They carry the pollen grains. I'm sure you know there is Adansonia digitata, the flower, huge flower, baobab tree. It's early morning. It's flower. Normally, flowering takes place around 3 to 5 p.m. How do they get pollinated at that particular time? So the bats are the ones who pollinates at that particular time, right? And I'm sure we all have seen Gloriosa superba, right? And let me tell you, there are many flowers which communicate to the visitors after the pollination is done. You see the Gloriosa superba, or what is called as Agni Shikha. There are some flowers with yellow and red petals. That color is changing, then they become red, and then slowly then they dry completely. Why do they change the color? They would like to give a signal to the visitors, tell that visitor that I'm already done, my job is done. Don't waste your time, visit some other flower. So it's a kind of a communication, kind of signaling to the visitor to avoid the timing and energy, right? Very interesting mechanism. This flower also has a very interesting structure. Again, initially these petals, now if you look at the petal and the structure, the petals, the tepals actually, they are perianth-like structure. The tepals are pointing upwards, and it's the stigma and the stamens are lower side, or they're below the tepals, right? And then the stigma protrudes on the sideway little bit, allowing it facing open space and allowing visitor to suck the nectar there. Once the nectar is sucked, the pollens are transferred, the flower slowly changes color, becomes totally dark red, and then withers completely. I'm sure you've seen hibiscus. There is a tree, hibiscus tree, which is morning at one time one color, afternoon it is something different color, evening it becomes reddish, and late evening if you go, the flower has fallen down. So the meantime the pollination is done. So it is communicating. You can see here another grevia species here, and different colors. Why are they different on the same plant? So the yellow is one fertile, and as the fertilization or the pollination is completed, they start turning to red, right? Timings of the opening. This I found very interesting. Different plants opens at different particular time, inviting the visitors at different times. So by such kind of mechanisms keeps the ecosystem balanced. So different organisms which are active at different timings have food and nectar available as and when they want it, right? So we know very well the Mirabilis jalapa, or what is called as 4 o'clock plant. It opens at 4 o'clock in the evening, or morning glory, which opens only in the morning, right? So how do they know the time? So there's a chemical signals, the sunlight physiological mechanism is involved. The sunlight, they can sense the light, and through the light they can sense the timing, and they will open perfectly at that given time, inviting them again the insects which are active at that particular time. Correct. We all know about what popularly called as Brahma Kamal. Of course, this is not a Brahma Kamal, but epiphyllum. Now, midnight Bethlehem star or midnight star, it opens slowly. It opens, and somewhere in the middle of the night, it is completely open, and you can see the wasp or a fly, I don't know what it is, visited that flower, and it is totally loaded with the pollen grains. Now, middle of the night, these insects are active, right? So this is pollinated at that time by this particular things. In the winter, these dandelions, you can see they are large in size comparatively, and has a lot of space there within two. So ray florets and disc florets, and in that gap of ray florets and disc florets, the temperature is slightly higher. It's warmer there, and lots of insects seek shelter in the night there, and thereby helping pollination. I think I've come to the last slide. I'm sure you've seen this kind of a mass flowering happening at cars, right? And all of them are pollinated by different pollinators at the same time, right? So thank you very much. I've finished my presentation, and I will be happy to take questions now.
Thank you, Rajendra Shinde sir, for the very wonderful presentation. As a botanist, also, I was intrigued throughout the presentation. Now I open the stage for questions. So you all can type your questions in the chat box, or you all can raise the hand. And then once that is done, we also have our programs and membership officer, Mr. Sheikh, Asif Khan. So he'll also uh, convey some words with that. But before that, we'll take up some questions.
Yeah, it's a sword. I'm reading Bhaskar's message. I am already enjoying your talk. Thank you. About flowers attracting one particular type of insects. There is an example of in avian world, sword-billed hummingbird. Yeah, yeah. Number of them. What I've showed you is just the tip of iceberg. Within a time span, if you look, that nowadays the data is available to you, and this data you can actually create lot of slides, and you can go on talking about it. Yes, I see Dr. Fadke there.
So we have one more doubt in the chat box. It's from Shruti. She is saying, "Thank you. What an exciting talk. How is climate change impacting temperature-sensitive pollination?"
It will know, because the see, as I said, these some flowers are time bound. The temperature, how do they decide the time? It's the atmosphere, temperature, climatic conditions, right? There, watch the circadian rhythms are adjusted according to the time. So when the climate changes is taking place, when they're not supposed to flower, they are flowering, or there is a delayed flowering happening. When it's delayed flowering, probably the pollinators are not available at that time. So directly or indirectly, it will affect the pollination. Yeah.
We have few more queries. I think Narendra is asking if we could get a copy of this presentation.
I can send it to Aksa and you can collect it from Aksa. Okay.
Yeah, so all those who have registered for the talk, definitely via email, we will share you the recording as well as the presentation.
No problem.
Yeah. Uh, Anyone else? Okay, we have got few more things from Suman. How different timing of flowers to attract birds for pollination have some evolutionary relevance. Timing of flowers relevant to evolution.
Yeah, because see, they adapt. This evolution takes a long time, right? It is not overnight. So over the period of time, uh, there is a color, there is a structure. I think I gave one example of species specific how evolution has helped. That's Darwin's orchid, correct? And that orchid has developed a long spur, and it cannot be pollinated by any other insect than that particular moth, which has that equal size spur. So this is a very good example of evolution. Now both has the orchid also has evolved in that direction, as well as the moth also has evolved in that direction to meet that requirement. So evolution has taken it keeps taking place. Evolution is happening unknowingly, we don't realize, and the climate is affecting that.
Uh, yeah. So there is also a question regarding which resources are there to specifically learn about details of structure of flower that aid in pollination and how to utilize it in nature education programs. From Rahul.
I would suggest you visit. Uh, in fact, I'm not familiar with technology. Otherwise, I could have inserted those videos in this presentation itself. Uh, but I suggest you just visit YouTube, say pollination in orchids, pollination in ceropegias. Number of videos are available, to very fascinating videos. You will be shocked to see how the plants are smart and how they smartly utilize the visitors, the pollinators. So YouTube videos, the internet material is very useful for this. Of course, the literature is also available. Uh, Nowadays, you can get the list of publications very easily on Google Gemini or Chat GPT. You will get a lot of literature. You will have to search on pollinators, pollination and pollinators, plants and pollinators. Use the right keyword and you will get those literature. But I have found many good videos, and which have I normally show the videos separately. Now today, I don't know, I was stuck somewhere and I was unable to put those videos, insert those videos in presentation. But I have two or three. There is one video of that hammer orchid, which is very interesting, very fascinating to see live cheating happening there. And even the other, the Darwin's orchid video. There's also another video called bucket orchid video, how the insect is cheated and allowed to escape through a one particular region, and while making an effort to escape through that opening, on the way the insect picks up the pollinia. So how orchids are the most evolved species in terms of the mechanisms of pollination. So you will get a lot of information on YouTube.
Okay, we'll move to the next one. So we have a few more and then we'll give it to Asif. So Rashida is asking, do we have pollinators for Ravinala in Mumbai? And also, how do some plants survive without pollinators?
So they probably flower, but the pollination doesn't take place. In Mumbai, Ravenala is planted everywhere, right? there is no fruit formation happening there. I have not seen any fruit formation. So probably in Mumbai we don't get don't get pollinated by lima. Maybe the bats could be other possible pollinator for Ravenalia, right? But then we don't get the fruit formation happening there. They just probably visit, pollination happens, but it don't completely matures. The fructification doesn't happen.
Okay, we have second last query, which is from Nilesh, and he's asking about drumstick seeds. Does it open in air? They are depending on air for pollinations. So pollination in drumsticks.
Seeds, you're talking about dispersion, seed dispersal. Pollination is different than seed dispersal, right? Pollination happens with flowers. Drumstick is a fruit after the fertilization, pollination has completed, fertilization has happened, ovary has matured into a long fruit, and then seeds are formed inside that drumstick, which are having a wings. So when it opens up, dried, if you we normally don't allow drumsticks to dry, but in a similar way, even in Bignoniaceae family, you get those winged kind of seeds, and those seeds, that is seed dispersal, right? The seed dispersal takes place, and then they go with the wind and fall somewhere else and then germinate. I can see Shubhada raising her hand. Hi, Shubhada.
Uh, Hi, Dr. Shinde. It was a very comprehensive presentation. You just said that Ravenella, you didn't see any fruits for Ravenella.
Have you seen it?
No. I am asking about another plant, Amherstia nobilis. In Rani Bagh, you
Yeah.
can see the fruits, but there are no pollinators. Then how the fruits are formed?
There must be, no? The Ravenella is a Fabaceae plant, right? Very attractive flowers. Probably it is pollinated by butterflies. How are we eliminating butterflies from Amercia? No, they very attractive flower, very scented flower, and butterflies must be visiting them and getting pollinated by butterflies. The fruits are formed, so that means they're getting pollinated.
Okay.
So the last
There is
question.
no chance that without pollinator a pseudo fruit can be formed like
It
that.
is, yeah. So in some plants, I am not sure about Amercia, but there are plants in the efforts of creating their progeny. When they realize that cross fertilization is not possible, it's not happening, pollinators are not available, the plants then adapt self fertilization process. But such plants don't, I mean, the fruiting happens, it won't give you continuous progeny. It will maybe another 1 or 2 generations, and then seed will not germinate, kind of thing. But plants do adapt to self pollination mechanism. Yes, Dr. Fadke.
Sorry, I joined late. You might have covered it. But what about self-pollination and manual pollination? Self-pollination, you just now described it probably.
Yeah.
Manual pollination, especially the dragon fruit flowers, which I had planted on my terrace garden. I used to do manual pollination, but some brush or something.
Correct.
And then it works. Otherwise, the fruit what we get without pollination are very small because natural
Correct.
pollinator may not be here.
Right.
So, what is your opinion about that?
So they probably are not, you calling dragon fruit, right? Dragon fruit is not an Indian plant.
Correct.
So in natural habitat, probably in Malaysia, or where is it? It comes from Malaysia, right? So in natural habitat, probably it has its own pollinators. Here we do not have those pollinators. So when the self-pollination happens, as I said, plant realizes that there is no cross-fertilization happening. So it adapts to self-pollination. And such plants then, maybe 1 generation, 2 generations, you will get fruits, but slowly that process is stopped somewhere. So they don't germinate. And Therefore, human intervention. Human intervention is known in horticulture. We have been doing this human pollination, manual, mechanical pollinations, and that again, that also the fruit you may get one crop, two crops, but over the period of time, the quality of the crop then depletes.
Okay, we'll take only one or two more queries. I think two are already there in the message. So Ujjwala ma'am has asked about Arctic, where pollinators such as bees and butterflies may not survive. Would plants have evolved to accept self-pollination?
Yes, possible. No, I told you that when plant is smart enough to understand that it is not getting cross-pollinated, so it adopts to the self-pollination. Now, how successful that happens is a matter of time, study, and understanding. Also, in Arctic, there might be some other organisms which are helpful in doing pollination. No? May not be bees and flies and butterflies, but some other pollinators.
Last question, then we'll move to Asif ji. So Arya is asking, did flowers evolve to form specific traits to match the nature of pollinators found around, or did the pollinators evolve in traits in response to structure of the flower? So basically, they're asking if structures have evolved or the pollinators have evolved.
Co-evolution. So when there is a species specific evolution happening, it is a co-evolution. Both species are evolving together.
Okay, wonderful. So yeah, definitely there would be more questions, but because of time restrictions, I'll just ask Asif sir, to share a few words. He's our programs and membership officer, and if he can be kind enough to share some words, and then we'll have the vote of thanks at the end. Asif ji, over to you.
I thank you, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, Dr. Rajendra, thank you for enlightening us on this topic. And as an ornithologist and as a bird watcher, the association between plants and birds have been very crucial. So you can't do bird watching without noticing the plants and trees. And thank you for letting us know how the interactions between the birds and the flowers and the insects exist. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for everyone to join us. We have started this online talk series recently because we wanted more engagement with our members. And to expose them to people like Dr. Rajendra, who are experts in their field and who can share the knowledge and get more people interested in a diverse array of subjects. And hence, once you're knowledgeable about these subjects, you can keep your eye out on conservation issues that are happening in your surrounding, in your area or places that you visit. I just want to share my screen for just a short presentation on BNHS. I'm guessing almost all of you are BNHS members. Some non-members may have joined on invitation basis. So I'll just show you how to take the membership as well. So I'll share my screen. Just let me know if things are okay.
I think Raju sir has to stop sharing.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. Done?
Yeah.
Yes.
Aksha, my screen can be seen, right?
Yes.
Yes, we can see.
The presentation is on. Aksha, you'll have to let me know because I won't be able to see the.
Yes.
So, as I was telling about, I've been with BNHS for the past 15 years, officially. Unofficially, I would say my association with BNHS is for over 22 years. I've been taking trails for BNHS since I was in just left school and just joined college. Then I officially joined BNHS under Isaac Kinker in 2010. And I've been heading the program departments for about 5 years now. And recently, I've been given charge for the membership as well. So I'm just trying to do something new for the members that we have. So just people who do not know about BNHS, I'm just going really quickly through what BNHS is about. We are the one of the oldest natural history society in South Asia. We have been here since 1883, and since about 65 years ago, we moved in our Hornbill House, which is our head office in Colaba. And so, as I told you, our journey began in September. So every 15th September, we celebrate our birthday, as you can say. And we have over 100 scientists and professionals working with us. So we have a scientific department um which consists of scientists and even non-scientific staff like myself. So I know birds, so I take part in some projects and help them out as well. So in terms of department, one of the key resource that we have is our collection. So in the earlier days, the study of wildlife used to happen by collecting wild animals, birds, mammals, and these collections have been preserved. And these collections go even beyond since BNHS was formed. So BNHS was formed in 1883, but even before that, these the people who used to work in nature submitted their collections to BNHS once we started housing them. We have over 120,000 specimens of insects, birds, even eggs. And we do showcase these specimens during programs like the bird identification workshop that I conduct, or the butterfly identification workshop, or we have school programs which showcase these uh, collections. Then again, we also have one of the best collection on wildlife books. We have over 22,000 books, which all members have access to. We have a publication department which comes out with the Hornbill magazine, which you might be familiar with if you're a member. And we also have a scientific publication journal, which is the JBNHS, for people who are into the field and they want scientific literature and referring to them. Apart from these, we have published a lot of books on various topics from trees, shells to reptiles to birds. One of our the most famous bird book, sorry, by Salim Ali, the Book of Indian Birds, is in its 13th reprint. So you can imagine how popular that book is. Then we have the Conservation Education Center where AXA works. So we have a 33 acres of forest land in Goregaon that was given to BNHS for conservation. And we have a beautiful education center there attached to this forest, and we regularly conduct programs there. Also, as a member, you have access to this place. So within their open hours, you can visit the education center whenever you want. So my department, program department, conducts weekend programs, nature camps, international camps to sensitize people and get more people into conservation. So my department, the program department, kind of acts like a hook to people who are kind of got their foot in the door. They are interested in nature, but they still are on the fence whether they are hardcore into conservation and wildlife, or just would like a general trip to the tiger reserve and see the tiger. So we kind of conduct these programs to convert those people, to teach those people on it's beyond tourism. It's much more bigger than just going into the forest and having a look at these birds and uh, tigers. So one example I can share with you is that during our tiger camp, though there are people who are like tiger centric, they only want to see tiger. By the end of the camp, they start bird watching. because you can only wait for the tigers for so long. So the time that they're waiting for the tiger, I start showing them birds, and I start talking about trees. So that gets them into other things apart from uh, tiger-centric tourism or big mammal tourism. So that is what my department does. Membership department primarily is our backbone of BNHS. So what happens is you join the BNHS membership in terms of joining a community to conserve nature. And the benefits that you get primarily is you contribute to a social responsibility by actively participating in conservation. We have WhatsApp groups for our members where you can discuss conservation issues. You have learning opportunities from experts in the field like Dr. Rajendra, and talks and workshops. You network with a lot of like-minded people on these WhatsApp groups. Again, you have exclusive access to the CEC, the library, and publications. And plus, just as a bonus, you also get discounts on merchandise and events, and certain events like these talks we conduct free for our members. So people who are already members, they can just know the structure. People who are not, this is for you, what kind of memberships we have. We have three basic categories of membership. So individual membership are annual, 3 year, 5 years, and life. Then we have academic membership where you get student membership at considerable discount. We also have something called as an institutional membership. Now, institutional membership can be taken by either a department of a college, entire college, coaching classes. So anyone who wants to take an institutional membership, all their people in their institute become a member, so they also have the same benefit like any member. On top of that, all the other members will get the Hornbill magazine. The institutional members also get a journal. Now, the third category is corporate membership, which is we also call the Friends of BNHS. So if you work in a corporate, you can always propose this because it becomes a big help when we side with corporates and we join hands with corporate to realize a lot of projects that we have in store. In that also we have different categories: silver, gold, and platinum, depending on how many years they want to invest in BNHS. So silver is 1 year, gold is 3 years, and platinum is 5 years. So I'm just putting the QR code for the membership form online. Who are not members, they can scan it, or I'll just share my phone number with you as well. You can just drop me a WhatsApp or an email if you need further information. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for spending time and being a part of this talk.
Thank you so much, Asifji. Quickly, I'll just have few words for the vote of thanks. So first of all, thank you, Dr. Shinde, for a truly illuminating journey of pollination. And your talk has taken us beyond petal and pollen into stories of co-evolution, connection, and the marvels happening around us every moment. As we have learned in today's lecture, let's go forward with a guiding thought that every flower, every insect, every interaction matters. In our gardens, parks, cities, policies, each small act of awareness or protection ripples outwards. On behalf of BNHS and all those present, I extend my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Rajendra Shinde for his time, knowledge, passion, and for joining the editorial board of BNHS to keep strengthening our collective mission. I also thank each one of you, our members, and everyone else who is present in this meeting for being with us today, for asking such insightful questions, and for sustaining this initiative. It is your presence, curiosity, and support that makes this series meaningful. Also, just a reminder, we meet every second Sunday of the month for talks. So every second Sunday, different subject, different topic, different expert, and we will explore nature's mysteries and its conservation. Please look out for announcements for different sessions on our social media and also through our mail communication. Until then, let's stay curious and Thank you all for joining. And yeah, with this, I'll conclude this meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, AXA and BNHS. Thank you for the opportunity. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So with that, I'll just end the meeting. Thank you, everyone, for being part of this talk, even though we have definitely overshot the time. Thank you so much.
You had written 6 o'clock.
Yes, yes. It was supposed to be actually 5, but then we extended it because we knew the topic was very elaborative and extensive.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.